Remember Saturday nights, the excitement of heading to Blockbuster, wandering the aisles, the smell of popcorn and plastic cases. That iconic blue and yellow sign was a beacon of weekend fun. For decades, Blockbuster was the king of home entertainment. At its peak, it had over 9,000 stores worldwide and was a multi-billion-dollar empire. It seemed untouchable. So, how did this giant collapse so spectacularly? How did it go from being on top of the world to filing for bankruptcy in just a few years? Today, we're unwrapping the epic rise and tragic fall of Blockbuster. It's a story of missed opportunities, stubborn pride, and a failure to see the future staring it right in the face. The story starts in 1985, when the first Blockbuster store opened in Dallas, Texas. The founder, David Cook, used his experience in computer software to build a massive inventory and an efficient system for tracking tapes. This was a game changer. While small mom-and-pop video stores struggled with limited selection, Blockbuster offered thousands of titles. You could almost always find the new releases. They also created a family-friendly image by refusing to stock adult films, which made them a trusted brand for households across America. Their business model was simple but effective. Buy VHS tapes from studios for about $65 each and rent them out for a few bucks. The real money, though, came from the late fees. We all remember the dread of returning a movie a day late and facing that penalty. These late fees accounted for a huge chunk of their revenue, around 16% at one point. This business model fueled rapid expansion, and by the early 90s, Blockbuster was a global phenomenon, opening a new store somewhere in the world every 17 hours. But as the 90s rolled on, the ground beneath Blockbuster's feet began to shift. The first tremor was the arrival of the DVD. DVDs were cheaper to produce, lighter to ship, and offered better quality than bulky VHS tapes. Blockbuster was slow to embrace the new format. They had invested millions in VHS inventory and were hesitant to make it obsolete. They eventually did switch over, but their initial reluctance was a sign of things to come, a deep-seated resistance to change. While Blockbuster was cautiously dipping its toes into the DVD market, a new kind of competitor was emerging, one that would completely rewrite the rules of the game. In 1997, Reed Hastings, frustrated by a $40 late fee he got from Blockbuster for the movie Apollo 13, co-founded a little company called Netflix. Their idea was radical. No brick-and-mortar stores, no late fees. You just went online, picked the movies you wanted, and they'd arrive in your mailbox a few days later in a neat red envelope. You could keep them as long as you wanted. It was a subscription model, offering convenience and freedom from the dreaded late fees that customers hated but Blockbuster relied on. In the year 2000, Reed Hastings flew to Dallas to meet with Blockbuster's CEO, John Antioco. Hastings proposed a partnership. He offered to sell Netflix to Blockbuster for $50 million. Netflix would run Blockbuster's online brand, while Blockbuster would promote Netflix in its stores. Antioco and his team laughed them out of the room. They saw Netflix as a tiny, niche service that posed no real threat to their 9,000-store empire. This decision, this single moment of hubris, is now widely considered one of the biggest blunders in modern business history. While Blockbuster was dismissing Netflix, they were also facing another threat, launched in 2002. These bright red vending machines started popping up outside grocery stores and pharmacies, offering DVD rentals for just $1 a day. They combined the low price of Netflix with the instant gratification of a physical store. Blockbuster's response: they mostly ignored it. They were still the biggest player in the game, and they believed their brand and store presence were enough to keep customers loyal. They were convinced that people wanted the experience of browsing in a physical store, something that Netflix and Redbox couldn't offer. What they failed to realize was that for many customers, convenience and cost were starting to matter more than the experience. The world was changing, but Blockbuster's leadership was stuck in the past, clinging to a business model that was becoming obsolete. Finally, in 2004, Blockbuster decided to take the online threat seriously. They launched Blockbuster Online, a service designed to compete directly with Netflix. And honestly, it was a pretty good service. It even had an advantage. You could return your online rentals to a physical store and swap them for a new movie right then and there. It was a hybrid model that could have been a game changer. They poured millions into it and started gaining subscribers, even forcing Netflix to lower its prices. It looked like the giant had finally woken up. But behind the scenes, there was a civil war brewing within the company. The franchise owners who ran many of the individual Blockbuster stores hated the online service. They felt it was cannibalizing their in-store rental business. The pressure mounted, and activist investor Carl Icahn got involved, siding with the franchisees. He led a shareholder revolt that ultimately resulted in CEO John Antioco, the very man who championed the online strategy, being pushed out in 2007. His replacement, Jim Keyes, had a very different vision. Keyes came from the 7-Eleven convenience store chain, and he believed Blockbuster's future wasn't in competing with Netflix, but in becoming a one-stop shop for entertainment. He wanted to sell movie tickets, merchandise, and even snacks, shifting the focus away from the core rental business. He scaled back the investment in Blockbuster Online and shut down the in-store return program, effectively killing the one key advantage they had over Netflix. At the exact moment they needed to be doubling down on their digital strategy, they did a complete 180. Keyes famously said, "Neither Redbox nor Netflix are even on the radar screen in terms of competition." This was in 2008. That same year, Netflix launched its streaming service, allowing subscribers to watch movies and TV shows instantly on their computers. This was the final nail in the coffin. The rise of high-speed internet and on-demand streaming was a tidal wave, and Blockbuster was left standing on the beach. Their massive network of expensive physical stores, once their greatest strength, had become their biggest liability. They were drowning in debt from leases and overhead, while a nimbler digital-first Netflix was thriving with low overhead and a rapidly growing subscriber base. Customers no longer needed to leave their homes to be entertained. The entire concept of renting a physical object felt outdated overnight. Blockbuster's revenue plummeted. By 2010, they were losing millions of dollars a day. They frantically tried to pivot, installing their own rental kiosks to compete with Redbox, but it was far too little, far too late. In September 2010, the inevitable happened. Blockbuster filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Dish Network bought the company out of bankruptcy in 2011 with a plan to keep a smaller number of stores open and challenge Netflix in the streaming world. But the brand was too damaged, the competition too fierce. By 2014, Dish announced it was closing all remaining corporate-owned Blockbuster stores in the United States. The empire had crumbled. Today, only one Blockbuster store remains on the entire planet. It's in Bend, Oregon, and it operates more as a tourist attraction and a nostalgic time capsule than a functioning video store. It's a living museum dedicated to a bygone era. So, what's the ultimate lesson from Blockbuster's story? It wasn't just one thing. It was a perfect storm of bad decisions. They grew arrogant at the top. They underestimated their competition, dismissing Netflix as a joke. They were paralyzed by their own success, too afraid to cannibalize their profitable but outdated business model of late fees and physical stores. And when they finally did try to adapt, internal conflict and a change in leadership sabotaged their efforts at the worst possible moment. Blockbuster didn't just fail to see the future. They had the future walk into their office, offer itself for $50 million, and they laughed it out the door. It's a powerful cautionary tale for any business. Adapt or die. No matter how big you are never too big to fail. Thanks for watching our deep dive into the fall of Blockbuster. It's a fascinating piece of business history. What are your favorite memories of going to Blockbuster? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about the companies that shaped our world. See you in the next one.